He's fresh. He's ready to roll. He's Cooper Mays, the Vol Report, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. And it is Alabama week. And a guy that grew up in East Tennessee, a guy whose dad played for the Vols, brother played for the Vols. I don't care what the records are. And I know that's a cliche, but this game is special if you grew up anywhere close to Knoxville or Tuscaloosa. It's a special week for everybody.
Yeah, you're right on point. I completely agree. Big time game, man.
It is a big time game. Is
Fun game.
an awful lot at stake too. So before we get to this year's Alabama game, I wanted to look back for a second at last year's Alabama game. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought in the preseason you guys were maybe a little bit too confident. As I got to know you and Jacob, I was wrong because you won 10 games in the regular season. So but I'm curious how much that confidence that you had helped you in the Alabama game, because you guys faced several situations that game could have slipped away, and you never ever flinched. It was an amazing game.
Man, I truly think, like, not to get too, weird and stuff, but I truly think that your mind is extremely, extremely powerful, and I fully buy into the stuff that, like, you can manifest, and like you can turn, like, your mind can make things happen. I don't know, if you see it and believe it, it can truly happen if you picture it the right way and train yourself. But I think that kind of was a theme of our whole team, is that we really expected that we were going to win, and like we knew that we were going to win. Like, it wasn't like you didn't go up there and like ask people what they thought was going to happen that week and like find any other answer than everybody knew we were gonna whoop up on them. So that was kind of our mindset, and I think it was infectious throughout the whole team. And when you got a bunch of guys, especially nowadays in college football with the new climate of college football, if you got a bunch of guys that truly like love each other and love what they're playing for, it's kind of rare to find nowadays, and with everything going on.
And you also did it in a clutch situation. And I'm curious how much that confidence continues when you find yourself in the nitty gritty of a game late in the fourth quarter. You've been there, you've done that, you've won. I would think that that helps last year, this year, and the rest of your playing days.
For sure. Like I said, it's kind of like a whole infectious charisma, whatever you want to call it, about the team. But like, you look back to times like last year during the Bama game, one of the last possessions, one of the last opportunities to go score points and put them away, we fumbled the quarterback running back exchange, and they ran it in and maybe went up. I don't know exactly what the scoreboard said, but it was definitely either they were up a little bit, or it was close. I don't know, but you know we snapped right back the next drive because obviously they scooped it and scored. We were right back out there in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and we went down there and drove the ball down and scored. So that's kind of the mentality that we have, is that we can reset and go right back at you. So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of the mantra of the team.
No doubt about it. And there are many Tennessee teams. There are many teams, not Tennessee teams, that might have folded under that moment with that fumble, and you guys didn't. And it was pretty amazing to watch. Let's talk this year. This offense is different than it was last year, but I'm loving it. I'm loving watching the X's and O's of it. How Josh Heupel is manufacturing yards when maybe you don't have the same players you had last year. How would you describe this offense and what it's able to do to keep the chains moving in a very different way than you did a year ago?
I just appreciate that we kind of find a way, and I also take pride in that I think we're pretty elite in a lot of categories when it comes to O-line play. So I take a lot of pride in that. Um, yeah, I feel like we're a group that just kind of finds a way, and I think it's also a big testament to our coaching staff. I think they do a really good job scheming guys up, scheming teams up, and figuring out ways to win and ways to get yards. And they're probably the best in the country at it.
I'm going to throw some amazing stats at you here in just a second. The Vol Report with Cooper May is brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Integrity matters, 50 years in Tennessee. Coop, your top 10 in rushing yards per game. And I know you're out for some of this, but I think it speaks to the group who I know you love and you love talking about. You're also top 10 in the nation, not top 10 in the SEC in rushing yards per carry. That's pretty phenomenal. I know you guys take pride in rushing the football, but how awesome is that?
Yeah, it's really awesome. I was kind of talking, hinting at it earlier that we're elite in some categories, and our rushing attack has been something that's been really key for us. Really, I think we've done a pretty good job blocking it up, but I think it's a really big testament to the guys in the backfield. We've got a really loaded and talented running back room. So hats off to those guys. They've done really well this year.
When you watch those running backs, when you see that group, and you grew up seeing some incredible running backs, but even before your time, Tennessee was known for being running back you, and not only having one, but oftentimes having a set. This group reminds me of some of the old ones going back before your time, the Jay Grahams, the Aaron Haydens, the Charlie Garners. It reminds me of some of those groups. I know I'm old, and that's a little bit before your time, but
Oh,
that's a what's that? Go ahead.
I've watched them.
Yeah, you have.
I watched a lot of my dad's games. So looking back, I saw all those guys running wild. They did a little bit differently than us, but you know, running is running. That's it.
Okay, let me throw a weird. Most players hate comparisons, but let me throw a weird comparison at you. Jalen Wright runs angry to me like Travis Henry. He reminds me sometimes of Travis Henry. Am I onto something or not?
Yeah, man. I think it's like you said, it's a style of running that's angry, and I think all of our guys do a lot of different good things, but I think that's probably one of his best things is he has a tenacity and an energy about him that is ready to go at all times.
What's that moment like when you're going against an opponent and you know you've broken their will in the running game? Because that's different than breaking their will and on the scoreboard via scoring 60 points. It's a little bit different when they know you're going to run the ball and you run the ball and they can't stop it.
Best feeling in the world, man. But it's really the best feeling in football. There's nothing better than taking somebody's soul. So that's it's the best thing you can do.
And do you feel like you guys are that kind of team? Have you had that feeling this year? You don't have to call out any specifics, but if you had that, I know you haven't played much, but if you had that feeling at times this year,
Man, I think we ran that way and blocked them up that way. It just didn't feel as much like it versus XA&M because we didn't finish as many drives as we'd like to in the red zone and everything. We kind of just shot ourselves in the foot. But if we would have actually put the ball in the end zone, man, it would have felt like that for sure. I mean, what do we have? We had over 200 rushing yards, right?
yeah, you guys were dominant. And you're right. Finish a couple of drives, and that score is even more lopsided than it was, or very lopsided. When you look at Alabama, there was the guy Will Anderson that we all talked about, who Darnell Wright shut down last year. But when you see their front there without him, both those guys gone on to the NFL. What do you think of their defensive front? What stands out to you?
Just what you're going to get with Alabama. You're going to get big, strong, physical guys that can run and do stuff in the pass pro realm that's pretty special, and they've got guys all over the field. It's Bama, man. It's pretty self-explanatory. They're going to be fast and physical.
They just kind of plug and play. And it really looks like the defense that you're seeing in practice is getting to be a little bit like that too. I could throw some elite stats at you for those guys as well, but you called it early. Your defensive front is making plays, and I feel like even more plays, maybe strip sacks, forcing more interceptions through pressure, are coming because this front you have, the defensive front's pretty darn good.
Man, I called it, like you said. But yeah, no, these guys they're real deal. I've played some really good, really, really good defenses in my time here at Tennessee, and and they're up there. I mean, I would hate to play our defensive line. I truly would hate to play them.
When you sit back and watch football, and you don't get a chance to do that a lot, I know. But when you sit back and watch football, do you think that's one of the best defensive fronts that you see on television? Whenever you do get to see ball, which you don't very often.
Talking about Tennessee in the realm of college, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, of course, man. Just the way we cause disruption in the run and especially the pass nowadays. I mean, it's ridiculous what they do.
People have said that you perhaps bring a sense of calm to the offense because it's been a lot better in the 2 games that you've been in before. I'm not knocking anybody beforehand, but what do you hope to bring your presence, not just what you do physically, but your presence to the huddle, to Joe Milton? What do you hope to bring as far as a mental approach to the game?
I just hope I bring my teammates confidence, So that's kind of what I don't know. I think I talked about it on here before, but I take that very seriously, and I take my job very seriously for the fact of knowing that when I go out there, that everybody has 100% confidence in me, and know that I'm going to do my job at a really high level. So that's really that's what I do.
What are some of your uh, first memories of Alabama growing up in this area? Is there any game that sticks out that you remember back in the day?
Yeah,
You're
if you
smiling. I don't know where this is going. I'm scared.
it's bad. I mean, it's you remember Mount Cody, of course, right?
Yes, I do remember Mount Cody with his double D's.
That's probably it, man. That's you know
That's your
I-
memory?
my first memory. Yeah, that's my first memory of the Tennessee versus Alabama game. I promise you, that's the first time I ever can recollect anything happening.
So you were what, about 12 years old?
Oh man, I was young. No, probably way younger than 12. I was probably 8, maybe. Well, I guess that's not way younger, but in the scheme of kids, that 8 to 12 is pretty crazy, I guess.
Yeah. So what do you remember that game as Tennessee could have had it would have been one of the greatest upsets in Tennessee football history. What do you specifically remember about that?
Just Mount Cody blocking the field goals or whatever. Did he block multiple or something?
He blocked 2. One was square in his chest, so I think the kick was a little low.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I remember that.
Wh-
That's pretty bad, man. But that's my honest answer.
let's let's be honest. Were you a Lane Kiffin guy?
I didn't even really know who Lane Kiffin was personally. Like, I don't know. I was really young, man. I didn't pay too much attention. The only games I ever really watched were Alabama and Florida, like the Tennessee versus Alabama, Tennessee versus Florida. But I don't know, man. Yeah, I was a big Lane Kiffin guy, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. What is? Do you feel like Joe's comfortable uh, playing a lesser role with the approach that you guys have this year? There's not the big chunk plays, and you run a lot of screen passes. How comfortable is he and this offense with running a different style?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think we're comfortable just finding a way to win, and that's kind of what we found out. What we got to do is we just got to figure out a way to get yards and a way to win, and I think we've kind of done that to a pretty high level most of the time this year, and we're gonna keep getting better, and those chunk plays are gonna come, and it's all gonna work itself out. We're gonna keep plugging away at it.
What is the key to playing well on the road?
Man, I say starting fast. I like I if you can take away the crowd early, I think that's a pretty good way to start. Yeah, I say try to take the lead early.
Did you, there was the LSU game last year that you guys were able to do that. When the crowd's out of the game, how much does that make your communication easier on the offense? Does that have an effect or no?
It makes your communication easier, but I mean, moreover, you get the lack of motivation and the lack of all the momentum from the defensive side of the ball. There's nothing worse than a defense that's super confident and just ready to go. So if you can take the crowd out of it and you kind of take their spirit away, that's the way to win on the road, in my opinion, especially in this league.
Not to bring up a bad memory, but Georgia last year, it seemed like the crowd was really into it, and you guys weren't able to take them out of it early. How much of a factor was that in communication on what you guys were able to do offensively?
Yeah, it wasn't good. I mean, definitely if you look, there was a lot of false starts and stuff like that. It's not good with our offense. You got to make sure you start fast, start the drive the right way, and it'll kind of get the momentum built. But like you saw this past weekend with Texas A&M, if you shoot yourself in the foot, it's the margins to win in this league and do the right stuff is so small. So if you take it out of the hands of play, if you're just getting penalties and doing the wrong stuff, then you're not going to have much success.
It seems like last year about this time, Tennessee was the talk of college football because you had the big chunk plays. You guys were undefeated to this point, and it had been a long time since Tennessee had been at that level. Now you do have a loss on the record, which I would argue probably wouldn't have happened if you were available, but we'll save that for another day. But you're kind of lurking in the weeds a little bit. Which would you prefer? Would you prefer being the team that everybody points to, or would you prefer the team that's just kind of hanging out, finding their way, could end up doing something special?
Man, it doesn't really matter to me as long as we win on Saturday. And you know me, it doesn't really. I mean, I don't really care what many people think, to be honest. Like it doesn't. But you know,
Other than I don't want you to give anything away whatsoever, but what are some of the keys to the game you feel like this upcoming week against Alabama?
yeah, it's no secret. It's a SEC game, and you got to come out there with great intensity and great violence to your game, and you got to execute at a high level. It's pretty simple. There's nothing, no secret involved in it. Just got to do our jobs well, do it the right way.
Yep. Coop, great stuff. He's Cooper Mays, the Vol Report with Cooper Mays, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.